Hi, I'm Dr. Amy, and we're here to help you harmonize your horse's health by helping with some definitions and giving you a little more understanding of some of the things that go on in the horse when they have lower limb problems. One of the problems that horses oftentimes will have comes from damage to their tendons, tendon sheaths, and swellings that occur in the lower limb. As many of you know, with the anatomy of the horse, there aren't a whole lot of muscles as we get further and further down the limb toward the foot. It's almost entirely tendon and ligamentous tissue that holds that leg together. So we're going to talk a little bit about what makes the limb move forward and how you can prevent injury in that area. This is Bear, and Bear is 27 years old. He's been a police horse for a long time, so you can imagine he's been on all kinds of terrain. If you look at his limbs, he's got some swelling down here near his pasterns that is pretty chronic. It's been there for a long, long time and probably comes and goes depending on what his level of activity is. Most of the tissue in that part of the limb is tendinous tissue. We refer to these oftentimes as things like inflamed tendon sheaths, torn ligaments, torn tendons, inflammation of the suspensory ligaments or the suspensory system, and you'll oftentimes hear things like bowed tendon, bowed ligament, anything like that. The best way to prevent injury to those areas is to make sure that the muscles attached to them are working. When we look at the tendon, we have to remember that the tendon tissue is a linear form of tissue. It's straight. It doesn't shorten, it doesn't lengthen. It stays the same length. The muscle at the top of that tissue is what shortens and lengthens depending on whether it's flexing or extending. So that is actually the shock absorber, the spring force of the leg, not the tendon itself. Tendons were never ever meant to take the load and the force that is applied to that leg when the horse lands on it. And landing at speed multiplies that force several hundred times. So if we take a horse who weighs 1,000 pounds or more, we add a rider who weighs anywhere from 100 to 300 pounds, and then apply the forward motion of running to the downward motion of planting the leg firmly on the ground, you can begin to understand some of the forces that go into these tissues. Now we're also talking about the joints and the bones and the cartilage that are absorbing the compression from that landing. In order to protect these animals, one of the things that we have to protect and keep working are the muscles. Because the muscle's ability to contract and expand, to lengthen and shorten, is what protects the tendons, the joints, and the bones. As long as those joints can lock into a straight position when the horse lands on the leg, then the joint is protected. Here's how it works. I'm going to ask Rick to be part of our muscle system. Oh, buddy, you back up a second. Rick is going to be the foot of the horse. So he's firmly planted on the ground. He's got gravity to help him stay there. I am the muscle at the top of the horse, and the lead rope between us is our tendon. When the muscle is weak, then when the foot plants on the ground, it will slap firmly. So as the horse moves forward, the muscle's going to be weak and the foot will plant rather loudly. These are the horses that you hear walk down the pavement, and you can tell who it is. You hear them go clump, 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 plop, clump, 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 plop, rather than clump, 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 clump. All right? That's because our muscle is too weak and it can't balance those tissues. The leg's not extending as it should, and the joints are not locked out. On the other hand, if the muscle is tight, then the muscle is going to pull against gravity constantly. The foot still stays on the ground because gravity is going to help it stay there. So what is between the ground and the muscle that's taking the load? The tendon. All right, our tendon, because it is more like a rope, isn't meant to stretch, and it's not meant to shorten. So what it ends up doing is taking the forces of the tight muscle at the top of it. Now, when the tight muscle allows that foot to contact the ground with the forces of gravity, as it should, we not only get more force on the tendon, we get more forces on the already tight muscle. So what happens? If this were a weaker rope, I could show you, but what happens with the tendon is that it splits. It frays down the middle because it can no longer withstand the forces that are acting on it. And that's what we call a bowed tendon. That's what we call a suspensory ligament damage. That's also what we see in the hind leg of horses when we have things like inflammation in the suspensory ligaments that surround in the capsule that surrounds those ligaments. They become inflamed because now all of a sudden they are taking up forces that they weren't meant to. We also see this same function happening where those tendons change corners, at the pulleys of the leg. Those pulleys are the accessory carpal bone, the navicular bone, and the sesamoid bones. That's their function, is to allow that tendon to change shape and change direction so that the forces acting on it will work. If we don't allow the muscle at the top of those tendons to stretch and relax like they should, then we're going to have damage to the bony tissue, to the joints, and to the tendon. There are a number of ways to help these things. There are a number of forces that act on them. An acidic body will make your muscles not function correctly. Low mineral function in the body will make your muscles not expand and contract like they should. And poor movement of the spinal cord will also cause these things. So good nutrition, proper nutrition, chiropractic care, those are ways to help harmonize your horse's health.
All right, we're going to ask Dr. Amy to walk Rowdy back in again after his adjustment. Notice that his hind feet, they're both coming up off the ground a little bit better, a little bit more even in the pelvis movement. Remember, this is one joint, one adjustment on a horse that's had some problems going on for several years. As we bring him back in here, we can ask him to collect again. And he's got some movement in his back now. He comes up in the back, and as we bring him around over here and ask him to come around and give us some neck motion. He's not sure if he wants to treat. Oh, there it is. And he can come almost all the way around. So we've taken this horse that was moving a little incorrectly from a previous injury. We've helped restore some normal motion to this guy, and we've helped harmonize your horse's health.